Hello, my friends. Welcome back to StoryPath English. I am so truly happy to see you again. Please, find a comfortable place to sit and relax. Perhaps you are by a window, watching the rain, or maybe you are simply resting your eyes, letting the sounds of my voice take you back through the centuries. Imagine we are sitting together once more by our warm campfire. The orange flames dance against the dark night, and as we look into the glowing embers, we see the shadows of kings and queens. Tonight, I want to tell you a story about power, about obsession, and about a man who changed the map of heaven and earth because of what he wanted here on the ground. When we think of kings, we often think of crowns and gold, but the story of Henry VIII is different. It is a story of a man who was so determined to get his way that he broke the most powerful institution in the world, the Catholic Church. He was a king who had 6 wives, but his real story is about his search for a son and the legacy he left behind. How did one man's heart and his temper change a nation forever? Stay with me, and if you love these journeys into the past, please subscribe to our Path of Stories. To understand Henry, we have to forget the famous painting of the large, angry old man we often see in history books. We have to go back to the year 1509. Imagine a young man of 18. He is tall, handsome, and athletic. He is a musician, a poet, and a champion at jousting. He speaks many languages and loves to dance. This was the young Henry VIII. When he became king, the people of England cheered. They called him the Rose of England. They believed a golden age had begun. Henry's first wife was Catherine of Aragon, a princess from Spain. She was beautiful, deeply religious, and she loved Henry dearly. For many years, they were happy. They sat on their thrones together, and Henry was a loyal son of the church. In fact, the Pope gave him a special title, Defender of the Faith. But as the years passed, a shadow began to grow in the palace. Henry wanted a son. In the 1500s, people believed that only a male heir could keep a kingdom safe. Catherine had many children, but only one survived, a girl named Mary. Henry became worried. He began to think that God was punishing him. He found a verse in the Bible that said if a man marries his brother's widow, they will be childless. Catherine had been briefly married to Henry's older brother before he died. Henry decided he needed a new wife. He needed a miracle, and that was when he saw her, Anne Boleyn. Anne was not like the other ladies at court. She was smart, sharp-tongued, and she had dark, captivating eyes. Henry fell deeply in love. He wrote her secret letters. He promised her everything, but Anne was clever. She said she would not be his mistress, she would only be his queen. To marry Anne, Henry had to end his marriage to Catherine. In those days, only the Pope in Rome could grant a divorce or an annulment. Henry asked the Pope for help, but the Pope said no. This was the moment that changed history. Most kings would have accepted the Pope's answer, but Henry was not most kings. He was furious. He was the King of England, and he believed no one, not even a man in Rome, should tell him what to do. Henry listened to his advisors, men like Thomas Cromwell. They told him something radical. Why do you need the Pope? You are the king. You should be the head of your own church. It was a dangerous, explosive idea. But Henry's desire for Anne and his need for a son were stronger than his fear of God. In 1534, he passed the Act of Supremacy. He broke away from the Catholic Church and created the Church of England, with himself at the top. He closed the ancient monasteries, took their gold, and declared that England was now free from Rome. He destroyed a 1,000-year-old tradition for the sake of his heart. He finally married Anne Boleyn. He was sure that now, finally, he would have his son. But history has a strange way of repeating itself. Anne gave birth to a child, but it was another girl, Elizabeth. Henry's love for Anne quickly turned to cold anger. He felt he had sacrificed everything, even his soul, for nothing. Within 3 years, Anne was accused of crimes she did not commit. She was sent to the Tower of London, and on a grey morning in 1536, she was executed. Henry did not wait long to move on. Only 11 days after Anne's death, he married his third wife, Jane Seymour. Jane was quiet and gentle, the opposite of Anne. And finally, Henry got what he wanted. Jane gave birth to a boy, Edward. Henry was overjoyed. But his happiness was tinged with sadness, for Jane died only a few days later from a fever. Henry called her his true wife, and he mourned her for a long time. But a king must have allies, and a kingdom needs more than one heir. Henry's advisors suggested a fourth wife, a German princess named Anne of Cleves. They showed Henry a beautiful painting of her, and he agreed to the marriage. But when she arrived in England, Henry was disappointed. He did not find her attractive at all. He called her the Flanders mare. The marriage lasted only 6 months before it was annulled. They remained friends, but the fire in Henry's heart was looking elsewhere. He was now an older man. He was becoming heavy, and an old leg injury caused him constant pain. He was often grumpy and suspicious, but he wanted to feel young again. He chose Catherine Howard, a girl who was 19 years old, 30 years younger than him. He called her his rose without a thorn. He gave her expensive jewels and silk dresses. But Catherine was young and foolish. She fell in love with a handsome young man at court. When Henry found out, his heart was broken, and his anger was terrifying. Like Anne Boleyn before her, Catherine Howard was sent to the executioner's block. Finally, there was the sixth wife, Catherine Parr. She was a kind, mature woman who had been married before. She was more of a nurse and a companion than a romantic interest. She looked after Henry in his final, painful years. She helped him reconcile with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. She was the one who survived. Henry VIII died in 1547. He was a man who had started as a golden prince and ended as a lonely, feared giant. He had spent his whole life trying to secure his family's future. He had married 6 times, executed friends and wives, and torn his country away from the Catholic Church, all because he wanted a son to rule after him. The irony of Henry's story is found in what happened next. His son, Edward, became king but died very young. His daughter Mary ruled for a few years, but she had no children. And then the throne went to his other daughter, Elizabeth, the girl he didn't want, the girl whose mother he had executed. Elizabeth I became one of the greatest monarchs in the history of the world. She ruled for 44 years and led England into a golden age of art, exploration, and power. Henry had broken the world to find a king, but in the end, it was a queen who saved his legacy. The story of Henry VIII reminds us of the danger of absolute power and the cost of obsession. He showed us that when a leader thinks only of his own desires, the whole world feels the consequences. The beautiful cathedrals of England changed forever. The language changed, and the people's lives were upended, all because of the great matter of one man. As our campfire burns low and the logs turn to glowing red embers, Let us think about the things we chase in our lives. What are we willing to break to get what we want? Henry had all the power in the world, but he could not find the peace he was looking for. His story is a warning, but also a fascinating look at the human heart in all its complexity. Thank you for sitting with me tonight by the fire at StoryPath English. Thank you for traveling back to the palaces and towers of Tudor England with me. I hope this story helps you understand not just history, but the many words we use to describe love, power, and regret. The fire is almost out now, and the night is deep and quiet. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of bells ringing in old London and the sight of a king's ships sailing down the River Thames. History is alive, and we are just passing through. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit the like button and share it. Tell me in the comments, which of the 6 wives do you think had the most interesting life? I love reading your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a step on our story path. Sleep well, my friends, and I will see you on our next journey. Good night.